Hello, everyone. It's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter, and welcome to my weekly episode. It's episode number 365. Hey, 365 days in a year. Okay, just thought I'd observe that. Anyways, it is July the 21st, 2026. And today's episode, we're going to look at a bunch of things as usual. But first thing we're going to take a look at, and if you hear in the background rumbling and thunder, yes, it is thunder and lightning out right now and raining cats and dogs. So we'll see how long that lasts. Hope the power doesn't go out while I'm doing this. Okay, so what was I saying? Yeah, what I've been up to. Well, as you know, I'll just put that, take me off the corner. Walter and I went to a sew day with his group of people. I guess they're my group of people too now. I've been going on a regular basis, the sew group at the club. I'm not the only quilter there. There's another lady who quilts as well, but she does more garment sewing than anything else. But anyways, I digress. I worked on Adam's Jelly Roll Star quilt, and it's coming along nicely. This is the first third of the quilt. As I've mentioned before, I'm doing his quilt a little differently than his instructions call for. I'm following his basic pattern, or his block pattern, but I'm going to set the whole quilt on point. That's why I have them right now laid out this way. There will be inset triangles in those spaces in each row when I get the rest of it done. But right now, this is the first third. It's first third because the first third is going to have white background. The second third will be the transition, and it's only one row, but it's the longest row in the middle of the quilt, and it will start off in the upper half of the block as white, and in the lower half of the block it will become black, because in the last third of the quilt the background color will all be black. So we're moving from white into black, and I think that'll look a little bit different. But I love this pattern, excuse me, and I love it so much that I went through what little Christmas fabric I have. Most of the Christmas fabric I have is in bits and pieces, although I am doing something about that, which I'll talk about a little later. And I cut pieces to use this pattern make it as a Christmas quilt. Now, I don't know if I'll do the Christmas quilt as a on point. I think I'll do it just in the regular way that Adam has shown how to do it. But I think it'll make a great Christmas quilt because it'll be very scrappy. Great way to use up, pieces of jelly rolls that have been laying around, especially those Christmas ones, I buy, sorry, frog in my throat. I buy jelly rolls, Christmas jelly rolls, every year because they appeal to me. I love the way they're all decked out for you to get in the mood for Christmas. And of course, when I do that, well, I never use them, or I use only bits and pieces of them. So I got out all those bits and pieces and ironed them and cut them for pieces for a second Jelly Roll Star quilt, but it'll be the Christmas version. So stay tuned to see more about that in the coming days. Also, I am doing these. Now, this is a placemat. I'm making a second one right now. It's a bit experimental in the sense that this was a CD. Yes, I said a CD. I know, what a blast from the past. Hello, the 90s called. They want the CD back. Some time ago, and I don't know when, I've had it for a long time, I bought a Hoop Sisters CD. And on that CD were blocks for making a wall hanging, a quilt, or placemats. Now, the designs are mostly trees in this house kind of a thing, but I thought I'd give it a go. Now, of course, it was on CD, and I can't put a CD in my embroidery machine. I can't even put a CD into my current main computer, which is a Mac. They don't make CDs built into your computers anymore. However, because I used to use CDs a lot with all my other computers, I do happen to have a CD reader. Actually, it's a CD reader writer attached to my old Microsoft computer that sits over on another desk down here. And so I can easily copy stuff from CDs and, put them on a thumb drive or transfer them through my home network to whichever computer I want them to go to. So no problem there. I copied over the files that I wanted and put them on a thumb drive and put the thumb drive into the embroidery machine, and all's well. So these two blocks, the double tree block and the house block, are on there. It is an in the hoop applique. The thing about this is there's no satin stitching in this, but then I got thinking about that, and I expected there would be satin stitching around the trees and all those seams, but it is a sort of a flip and sew kind of thing that you do, so you don't have any raw edges at all. And I guess if you're making a placemat and there was satin stitches, it would make your placemat really bumpy. So no, I didn't do that. I did follow their instructions almost to the letter when it came to doing the two blocks, the house and the double tree block. I did what they said. They want you to lay down some battleizer and then you put your fabric on top of that. And that's pretty much standard anytime you do in the hoop applique. However, they also had a backing, and you put a piece of fabric at one stage under your hoop, and that was your backing, and there was a stitch line for sewing the backing to the main part. And so when you took it out of the hoop, you had a finished block, a block that had, your design on top, a layer of batting, and then your backing. Now, the problem with the backing is I do not change the colors in my bobbin thread. It's a waste of time for most projects. They wanted you to do this when you came to a certain stage, so that I think it's when you were embroidering the snowflakes on this, and you can't see, if you look closely you might see snowflakes in this, but I did them in white, and they do show up in real life, but they don't show up so much on this picture. They come out on the back as well, or in whatever color you do. I think there were a couple of other things where you had to do a color change on the front. Well, I didn't bother with that, and the back, it was okay, but the back, the tension, that kind of stuff, you get a few spots where, you got to trim off some extra threads and that, and the backs don't look really good on here. So I had a solution to that. But before I get to the solution, I'm going to tell you what they want to do next, which I hate. And this happens with a lot of Hoop Sister files or creations, I guess. They like to do this, join their blocks together on some of these, like Quilt As You Go. And I don't know if you've ever done one of those. I tried when I didn't have a long arm to quilt on, and I wasn't comfortable quilting on my sewing machine and my domestic sewing machine. And you basically make a hinge. You make sashing, you kind of hinge it, you pull it this way, you pull it that way, you put the next piece on. It is cumbersome, it's time consuming, and the final look of it I don't really like. So I'm not doing that with the second placemat. Well, I didn't do it with this one. First of all, I didn't want the sashing, but I did want the borders. So I did follow what they suggested for doing with the borders, and that was they told you to take a piece of fabric a certain size, put it in your hoop, and, well, actually, they didn't say put it in the hoop. What they said was layer it with the backing fabric used on the blocks, with the battleizer, which is the batting that you use, and the fabric on top, and then on your sewing machine or whatever, do a simple walking foot or crosshatch or curvy decorative stitch kind of quilting. And then you cut that big piece of fabric into these strips, and they gave you the size for that you sew onto the blocks that you have together. Yeah, I didn't want to spend time quilting another piece of fabric on my domestic sewing machine, but I have got quilting files for my embroidery machine. So I took the large piece of fabric. I did not take any batting. I just used my no show mesh stabilizer and quilted it, as you can see. Then I cut it into strips, and I sewed the strips to the blocks, and that's how I made my borders. But because I didn't put any batting in the border pieces, because I just knew that my seam allowances, I'd have to do some trimming and whatnot because there'd be very thick seams, and I didn't like the backing on the blocks, I decided I would make my own quilt sandwich using a piece of fabric for the batting, laid down some battleizer the same size as the placemat, and put the placemat at that point, the flimsy, on top of that. And then I did stitch in the ditch all the way around and in areas of the quilt, of the blocks. Just outlined the blocks, stitch in the ditch. I didn't do the trees, I didn't do the house, I just did basically the joining parts. And that put it all together. I didn't have that mess on the back anymore. My layers hold together. Because battleizer is very low loft type of batting, having the extra piece of batting made little difference to the thickness of the placemat, considering there was already batting in the two blocks, and it worked out fine, as you can see. And then I added a binding to it, and presto bingo, we have this cute placemat. I'm making a second one, and they're going to go into my box of potential Christmas gifts for somebody. So yeah, I am not a fan of Hoop Sisters. Their stuff, I find the way they put things together very cumbersome. I think they make things a little bit more difficult than they need be. The instructions for this are pretty clear as far as the actual sewing. It's all laid out for you. It's step by step, and they're all numbered, easy to follow. But it's the actual assembly that I just don't like. So I don't bother with Hoop Sister products. Now, maybe some of you have done some of their things before in your embroidery machine and you absolutely love them. That's great. If it works out for you, that's fine. As I always say, you do you, I do me. I am not saying you must do what I do or what I tell you I do. It's just what works for me. And that's the beauty of all of this, isn't it? We do what works for us, and that makes us happy. Okay, so I've got another one of those to make, as I mentioned. And then, I've been on a quest to find these felt portfolios. I bought a whole bunch of them back a few months ago at the Dollarama, and I can't find them. We have been to probably 10 or 12 different Dollaramas, and I guess they're just not carrying them anymore. And I thought these would make really great Christmas presents if I embroidered the front of them. And I've showed you the ones I have done before. Well, I went on to Amazon looking for them, and Amazon had some that were very similar and very expensive. I was paying like $2.75 a piece for one of these. Amazon wanted upwards of about $6-8 a piece for them. So I said no. So where do you go when you don't like the prices on Amazon? Temu. So I went on Temu. And they had lots in various prices. Now I was a little iffy. I thought, okay, what are these going to be like? Are they going to be of the same quality as the ones that I bought at the Dollarama? Because those ones from Dollarama for $2.75 a piece are fairly thick and they're nice for that money. So I did find, I think I paid for, you got a package of two. You got a dark one and a light one that I'm showing you here. They do have a snap closing. The flap's a little different shape. The ones on Dollarama were kind of rectangular. This has a point. And these have a snap already built into them, whereas the Dollarama ones had sort of an elasticized piece of fabric. And once I opened them up, that, of course, came out. came off, and I really couldn't get it sewn back in again because it was elastic and it was pulling everything in. So I put my own snaps on the ones that I have done that are Dollarama. This one, snaps already there, so I don't have to worry about that. And it looks to me like there's not going to be any problem opening them up so I can get them on the embroidery hoop, because it's the same kind of thing, just a simple line of stitching down the sides. So yeah, and I kind of like the pointy flap. I think that's a little bit more interesting than just a rectangular type flap. However, now they might be slightly thinner than the ones from Dollarama, and they are made of the felt. The other thing is they are the right size. They I measured the ones from Dollarama, and I looked at the dimensions that were put on Temu, and these ones are the same size. But they were more expensive, but not as expensive as Amazon. And I forget what I paid for a package of 2, but I think it was probably $4, $5 or $6 or something like that. And so a little bit more expensive, not a lot more. Maybe I think it worked out to about $3.25 per portfolio, as opposed to $2.75 from Dollarama, which makes these a 50 cents more, but okay, that's okay. So I think I ordered 4 packages of these, so I have 8. So I should have enough for my purposes, but I'm going to keep my eyes open anyways every time I go to a Dollarama to see if I can get the other ones, because I really liked those ones, in spite of the fact that they have a square bottom and I have to add my own snap to it. Okay, so I think that is all I've been working on. Oh, well, no, I have been working on one more thing. This is a French curve ruler. Now, I don't know what the heck you do with a French curve ruler. I think they're used in tailoring and in clothing making for certain types of garments. I asked Walter if he ever does anything with it. He says no, he's got one. His looks a little different from that, and I have discovered that French curve rulers come in a variety of different styles. He says he thinks they're used more or less in architecture and drafting and that kind of thing. So maybe they're used when you draft a pattern or something like that. I really don't know. But when we were at the sew day, Brendan, who is the person who puts the sew day all together, and who was the one that was running the courses that Walter took to learn how to make his shirts and everything else, he was showing me his French seam ruler, a commercially made one, and it's made out of a very, very thin acrylic. And he says he drops them on the floor, and once they hit the floor, they break, which isn't good. And he wondered if it was possible for me to 3D print something like that. So I said, well, that's a good question. Challenge on. So I went on to the various sites and did searches, sites I go to for most of my 3D models, and I found these 2. And so I sent pictures of these 2. Well, first of all, I printed this out, as you can see. One has numbers on it. The smaller one, I don't know what you do with those numbers. The other one is closer to what he had. His had markings on it, but I said to him, well, I probably won't be able to do anything with markings because I can't 3D print in something you can see through. I can't print in acrylic. But he said he doesn't use the markings. He needs it for the shape and that. So I had taken a picture of his, and this is pretty much the same. So I printed them out the other day, these 2. And I did have to glue. The larger one is printed in 3 sections, so I had to glue the sections together, but it has been designed in such a way that it just sort of all fits right together. And I'm using a type of super glue that works with this kind of plastic, and like once it holds, it holds. It's not going to go anywhere. So I took a picture of it, gave it to Walter to send to Brendan, since he had his email address, and he said, oh yeah, that looked fine. So he now has them, because Walter was out and about yesterday, and Brendan works from home. So Walter dropped over to his house and delivered these 2 rulers to him. Now, I haven't heard back from him yet, because at the time that Walter delivered them, Brendan wasn't home. His partner was, however, and so Walter just delivered them to him. So we'll see. In the meantime, I thought, well, if I made them for Brendan, I should make them for the other garment sewers at the Club Sew Day. So I've made each of them, or I'm in the process of making each of them their own set. Whether or not they'll ever use them, I don't know. I think it's one of those items they don't use a lot, but at least they'll have a set of their own French curve rulers that cost them absolutely nothing. Because these rulers, we were looking at them on Amazon. They're pricey, very pricey. Now, of course, they're probably more elaborate than what I've created, because they have markings and things on them and you can see through them and all that kind of stuff. But I guess he just uses it for the shape, because he drafts his own patterns. He's a very talented sewer. So there you go, a practical 3D print for the sewing world. Okay, so what's coming up? Sewing with me, Wednesdays as usual. The link is in the show notes. Join us, fill up our ranks, because they've been a little lacking right now. And I think I said yesterday on my vlog, so I'm not going to get into it again. I do find the lessened number of people that have been showing up lately a bit discouraging. My first reaction is to say it's me. I've done something. I've said something. I've done something. People don't want to come. The more logical side of me, that's the emotional side. The logical side says it's summer, and people are out and about, and they're on holidays, or they're doing a lot of things with their family when the weather permits and that kind of thing. So anyways, if you've never been to one, join us. You'll have a good time. We love new people. Okay, so links in the show notes for that. And I've already talked about the Club Sew Day. It was a good day. That's where I got all of those stars done. And of course, we don't get started too early. It's supposedly we start at 10, but we really don't start till noon, because we get there and we blah, 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 have coffee and blah, blah, blah some more. And then finally get around to digging out our stuff, setting up our machines. And by the time we get everything set up after our blah, 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 it's almost noon. And we run until about 5. So yeah, it's definitely a very social day. And I got nothing against that. That's okay. It's Wednesday sew days with me are also very social, but we get things done. But it's sometimes nice to meet up with other people too. And it's interesting to hear how the garment sewers go about what they're doing and what they're working on, because they're all working on something a little different. And yeah, you learn something from anybody. You can always learn something. Okay, so subscribers' comments of the week, talking about learning about something. So I isolated a few comments here. Last week on So Chatty, we talked about, for this week coming, having Walter show his process with Lucy, with the long arm machine, doing his free motion quilting. Walter's hesitant about doing this. You have seen over the last few weeks his progress, and he's getting better all the time. Now, I don't know if he did anything last night. I haven't gone out to check Lucy, but he probably has. And I think we're getting ready now for him to start working on more of a real quilt. He wants to do, I think I've already mentioned it, we have a great big panel. I added borders to it for him that is of a giant flower. You probably have seen it. It would remind you of a Georgia, what's her name, Georgia O'Keeffe painting, that kind of thing. It was a very popular print a few years ago, and a lot of people were doing thread painting on them, as a panel. And so Walters wants to do maybe a little bit of free motion quilting on that. He's got some ideas in his head. So that'll probably be the next thing that'll go on Lucy for him to work on. But in the meantime, he's still a little hesitant about letting other people see him actually doing what he does. And I told him, look, you're going to make mistakes. So what? People need to see your progress. because free motion quilting on a long arm is very, very intimidating. It intimidates me. I can't do it. I won't put the time in to practice it, although I should. Walter does have a natural talent for it. There's no two ways about it. And, you learn from other people's mistakes. And that's what this channel's all about. That's what's called the Idiot Quilter. Because we all make stupid mistakes, but we learn from those mistakes. So some people have been encouraging Walter with this. So Ava Martin says, come on, Walter, give us a demo. There are those of us who are new or interested in getting into quilting and don't know anything about long arm. Your demo would give us a better appreciation for what doing long arm is all about. You won't get any judgments from us. And Pam from Minnesota writes, I think Walter should demonstrate because it's important to show that people don't just start out as experts. The fact it takes practice is important to share. Definitely what I was saying as well. True. You have to start somewhere, and then you just improve over time. And Jen says, now this is a little different topic, but I want to bring it up because it's something I'm going to talk about in a minute. Jen says, I was at a quilt shop out of town when they got a delivery of 6 boxes of Christmas fabric. They were so thrilled because they had expected the fabric mid-May. They said other shops were also waiting on their Christmas fabric. So I have been complaining about the lack of Christmas fabric in my local quilt stores at the moment. And this may be why. It may be the manufacturers are behind in this. So it's no fault of the stores. It's the fault of the manufacturers. And I'm sure there's a reason why they're maybe not getting out their Christmas fabric as quickly as they should. And I don't know if I should even dare suggest that it could be because of the way things are going in the United States right now with the current administration. But anyways, we're going to talk a little bit more about Christmas fabric because I have found some in a moment. But before I do that, let's just take a quick look at what was up last week on the on my other channels, they're not channels, it's all one channel, on another section. Ooh, I don't know if you heard that. That was a big banger out there, thunder. So, Monday Morning Coffee with Stephen last week. We talked about birthdays being fun, but fires not. We talked about the whole thing with the fires. That's been the theme last week and still seems to be a theme in and about around the world, thanks to you-know-who, Trump, now threatening us with 50% tariffs on stuff because of our fires. Yeah. Can you spell crazy? Trump. And so Chatty, we took a look at the mystery. I called it the mystery behind mystery blocks and blocks of the month. And we also talked about sew-alongs. And I talked about the positives and the negatives that I have found in all of those areas. And on Stephen and Walter Live, we discussed, why do Americans hate us Canadians? Because that's how we're feeling these days. Yeah. So if you missed that, you might want to check it out. It's a fairly serious discussion, and it's not really a discussion. Basically, I took it upon myself, and Walter and I did, to represent the majority of Canadians. We probably shouldn't have done it that way, but, I think we're pretty close that, as Canadians, we all feel the same. So you may want to check that out if you haven't seen it yet. Okay, so we mentioned Christmas fabric. Somebody mentioned to me in the comment section, always learn something from the comment section. They said that in their area, there's a fabric shop. It's called the Yay Old Fabric Shop. It's in Stratford, Ontario. I have been there many times when we've gone on. Now, we haven't done it the last couple of years, but we used to go on these little road trips for a few days to Western Ontario and travel around to all the quilt stores. And one of them that I really, really love that's in the town of Stratford is the Yay Old Fabric Shop. And I try to make sure that I get there as part of the road trip. I have ordered from them online before as well. For some reason, it kind of escaped my memory. I haven't ordered from them in a while, probably haven't bought anything from them in 2, maybe even as long as 3 years. So this person said, well, they saw that they were advertising all kinds of Christmas fabric online in their online store. So I went. Yes, they had pages of it. Prices there are good. They're about middle of the road right now for fabric, because fabric's expensive. So I went on a major shopping spree. I filled my cart. I was buying 2-meter cuts of all kinds of things. I think I bought, what did I buy? I have my little order here. I bought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 different fabrics. And yeah, 21 different fabrics at 2 meters each. That's 42 meters of fabric. How much do you think I spent? Well, there was shipping on it and there's tax. So the total order came to about $1,100. Yeah, like I said, I did a major purchase. I don't have them yet. They're supposed to arrive tomorrow. So next week on the Idiot Quilter, I will be showing you what I bought. However, I want to tell you a little about this. At first, I went on to their site. I filled my cart. I went to the checkout. The checkout said you could use PayPal, and I prefer PayPal over any other system because it's very, very, in my opinion, it's very, very secure. I don't like typing in my credit card number because, you know, I'm not so sure how secure that is. But PayPal is always very secure. So I got to that part of the process. I clicked on the PayPal button. It spun its little wheels and then came up and said it couldn't find the page. Now I went, what? So I hit it again. Same thing. Tried it several times. Now, there was another choice where you could use your credit card. And I thought, well, I'll break my rule since PayPal seems to not be connecting in. But there was no place for me to put in my credit card number. I think it was tied in with that button if I was reading the instructions correctly on the screen. So here I am. I've got this cart full of fabric and I can't pay for it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So, well, one thing that I did was I printed the whole page out. So I had a record of what I was trying to order in case I lost the cart and some other things I wanted to try technologically. So I did try other things and nothing seemed to work. The cart stayed there, but it wouldn't let me go into the paying system. So I sent an email to the store and I told them that I was, I had this order in. I was a little frustrated. It was over $1,000, like your store. That's a big sale in one fell swoop. And I was very disappointed in their system to the point where I said, well, if I don't hear from you or whatever, I guess I'll have to go somewhere else. And I didn't hear from them. I had the email out. Now, their store opened at 10 in the morning. I sent this email out at around 9 o'clock. So I was waiting and waiting. And come middle of the afternoon, still nothing. And I'm beginning to think, wait, what's going on here? I don't want to wait forever for this. Because if this doesn't go through or whatever, then I am going to have to buy from someplace else. And I'm going to have to do the whole process over again. So I called them. I found their phone number. It was there on their website, and I called them. I got a lovely lady, Cheryl, and she could hear the frustration in my voice. And I have to give her credit. She didn't lose her cool with me, and that would have been easy to do at that point. And she suggested that I try cleaning out the cache on my computer, doing that and this. And I did that while I had her on the phone and everything. Same problem was there. Now she was getting a little frustrated because she was at her wit's end too, because she didn't know what was going on either, why it wasn't working. And she says, well, they'll have to contact their technical support team because she really didn't know what to do. That wasn't making my situation any better. Oh, and the other thing was she didn't get my email. Well, she did get it. She found it in her spam. So I don't know. But anyways, we talked about alternative methods around this because she could see the order. And it came up on her system as incomplete because it didn't go through for the purchasing of it. And she suggested a couple of things. I wasn't really initially that happy with these things because of security, like giving her my credit card number. Not that I'd ever had a bad experience with this particular shop, but in this day and age, if their stuff gets hacked or something like that, who knows? So she was going to look into it, but she did say, she's looking at my order. She said, well, we could do an e-transfer. And I got thinking about it and thought, yeah, e-transfers are pretty secure. As she said, we don't see any of the information. We send you the email address you need to set the e-transfer or send the e-transfer to, and everything's fine. So I said, okay, let's do that. Now, in the meantime, she was looking at my order and she says, by the way, she says, there's a couple of the fabrics you have in your order that are going on sale next week. But she says, I'll give you the sale price on those now, which was 25% off. Well, I thought that was very nice of her. She didn't have to do that. And she also said, I'm going to remove the shipping charge, which wasn't a lot of money. It was a flat rate. I forget what it was. It was something like, let's see, I've got it here. It was $18, and she gave that to me free. So with the ones that had, I think there was just 2 fabrics. Oh yeah, there was one fabric though she couldn't find. She said it was sold out. So I'm not getting 21, I'm getting 20. She has this written on the invoice as well. But there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fabrics on the order that were 25% off. So yeah, that makes a difference. And free shipping, and it reduced the tax and the whole bit. So instead of my total bill being originally I think about $1,100, it all came out to $900.89. Now you're saying, oh my God, $900.89. Yes, I have not spent money like that on fabric in quite some time in one fell swoop, but I want these Christmas fabrics. I need them. So anyways, we got that all settled out. Found out from her as well in a very nice email she sent me telling me that the order had gone through and she's getting it all shipped, and sent me the tracking information. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow, according to Campar, which is the company here in Canada that she sent it through. And she also follows me. So hi, Cheryl, out there if you happen to see this. But yeah, I've always liked the Old Fabric Shop in Stratford, and do check them out. Go online. They have reasonable prices, and they have a large selection of fabric. And if you're ever in Stratford, visiting their shop is worth the visit because it's great. It is really great. So shout out to Cheryl and to the Old Fabric Shop. Okay, so that takes me to subscribers creation of the week, and this one comes from Carrie Davison. This week's creation comes from Carrie Davidson, and Carrie Davidson sent in this picture of this really interesting looking quilt, and she says this about it. Many years ago, I made a beautiful Asian inspired quilt for my daughter using all red, black, and gold brocades. Bad mistake. It did look good for a while though. I didn't know any better way back then. I'd have another go, but use a much bigger seam allowance and pre-wash or pre-steam before cutting. I've sent a pic of it as well. I think it is sideways, which makes the kimono block 3 up and 3 right. Anyway, I did a kimono block which is not paper pieced, although one section can be if you wish, and just found it. Thought I'd send it to you and see if you like it. Okay, well, I'm a little confused because I don't think I got a copy of the other quilt. So this, I am assuming, is the original quilt that she says it was a bad mistake, but I'm not sure why it would be a bad mistake. This looks really great. It's got definitely an Asian feel to it. And maybe, you know, the fabrics were heavy to work with because they were brocade or that kind of thing. But nevertheless, I think for the time period when you made this, the point in your quilting journey, I think you did a really great job on it. And I think it's great, a great quilt. So thank you so much for sending that to me to show. Now, the short tip of the week on YouTube is about how to do a really quick rolled hem. This week's short tip from YouTube is all about how to make a rolled hem. And if you have a serger, you already know how to do this because a serger makes quick use of it. But you probably also have a rolled hem foot in your sewing machine collection of feet, and maybe you've used it, maybe you haven't. Well, in this tutorial it shows you an easy way to do a rolled hem using just your ordinary foot, so you might want to check that out. Now, the reason I put that particular tip up is I have a serger and do a rolled hem on it, but if you don't have a serger, there is that foot in your, probably with your domestic machine. That's the rolled hem foot that a lot of people don't use because they don't know how to use it. So this might inspire you, especially if you're going to make something like a table runner or make napkins. That's where I use the rolled hem the most for, is when I make napkins. You might find this really useful to try out. Okay, so this week I am moving into a new little mini series about, this one's about, we've just finished Healing Waters, okay, my quilt design using indigenous fabrics. Now we're going to move into my African Safari table runner. Now, this is not my own pattern. This is an in the hoop project, so this is for those of you with embroidery machines. And it is the table runner that I have yet to give to our next door neighbors who went to Africa back in February, March. Yeah, we were going to have them over for charcuterie and drinks, that kind of thing, and I was going to give it to them then. And we still haven't got around to that. We have another little something we got them in Japan as well. Yeah, I need to get the lead out because next thing we know it'll be Christmas, so we'll have them over here for Christmas charcuterie. But anyways, I thought you might would be interested in seeing how I go about doing one of these more elaborate in the hoop projects. So this is the first part. And there'll be several parts over the next couple of weeks for this, in the same manner as I did the Healing Waters quilt. And this first one, I show you the pattern and talk about the different things you need to know before you start a project like this. And so if you want to freshen up your coffee, this little demo clip runs about 7.5 minutes. I'm going to show you how to construct the African Safari table runner by Creative Kiwis. Now, there is a video on YouTube showing you how to go through this point by point, and I'm not going to go through every one of the panels that are here, but I'm going to give you a sense of what it is to do an in the hoop type of applique, or for this particular type of pattern. Now, as I said, it's called the African Safari Runner. It is by Creative Kiwi, and it is made up of quite a few different panels that silhouette African animals on a savanna or near water, and there's a reflection of each animal and the vegetation in the lower half of each panel. So you have the sky panel and you have the water panel. The sky panel is the orangey yellow, and the water are the shades of blue. And as an option, you can put Africa, outline of the African continent on each end. I don't think I'm going to do that because, quite frankly, and I know it's hard to see it in this picture, I don't like the way the words stitch out onto it. I will either put that on the end of each one without the lettering. I don't know yet. But I'm not going to necessarily do this whole thing exactly as they show it here, but that's the beauty of this. When you do it in pieces and panels, you can pick and choose how big you want this particular table runner to be. And I don't like their choice of colors for their borders and the number of borders. I'm going to probably use some African fabric that I actually have in my stash. So I want you to see this pattern first of all, and I want to explain patterns that come from Creative Kiwi. Let me see if I can get this back down to a reasonable size. There we go. Their patterns are very, very detailed, and they cover a variety of sizes and hoops. You see down in here, hoop sizes 5x7, 6x10, 8x12. I am doing the 6x10. I like that size, and that uses my 28B hoop. If you have a 550E, Janome 550E embroidery machine, you'll know what that means. If you don't, well, 6x10 is basically the size of the hoop that you'd be using. They give you some information here about how the files are set up for your embroidery machine. And they talk about optional end panels, which I was just talking about with Africa on it. And they tell you what you need. Now they say medium weight cutaway stabilizer for each hooping. I'll be using no-show mesh. They talk about pins. And if you see the video that they have on YouTube for this, the person doing it, Kay, she loves to use pins in conjunction with her hoops to hold down her stabilizer. I don't use that. I think that's overkill. I don't know why she feels that she needs to do that. Maybe her hoops don't secure as tightly as mine do. I don't know. But for me, you won't be seeing me using any kind of pins on this. Later on, she also shows you how to put each of the panels together in the hoop, basically sewing the panels together. I'm not going to use her method. I think it's very involved and very complicated, much more so than it needs to be. I'll show you how I do it using my domestic sewing machine and how I get each panel lined up so it's in the right place. The thread that you pick is really up to you, what colors you want. For this particular one, I'll be using black, a goldy yellow, and a blue, and a white. And that's it. I'm only using 4 colors for this. It is up to you what you want to use for colors. I think she only uses about 4 colors as well. And then she breaks it all down with pictures. And this is one thing I like about Creative Kiwi. They put pictures for every step of the way. So you see here to start with, you're stitching out onto your stabilizer. The outline for where you're going to put your batting. Yes, you will need a piece of batting for this, for each panel. And then where you put your fabric pieces, you'll need a piece of blue fabric and a piece of yellowy orange fabric. But again, that's strictly up to you what color scheme you want to use. And you go on from there. Now, she's showing in this particular one doing the outline for the continent. I don't know yet whether I'm going to do that, but you can see it's very, very detailed. She also uses a lot of tape. Sometimes that is necessary. A lot of times you don't need the tape, but she uses this tape quite a bit. Tape and pins seem to be her thing. Not mine so much, but you do you. And then she talks about sewing the panels together, as I already mentioned. So it is very extensive. It shows you each of the panels and how to put it all together. And then she has a suggestion for how to do the borders as well, which again is up to you how you want to do that, and the quilting of them. She talks about that too. So I do find that sometimes Creative Kiwi's patterns are a little too detailed, and they do techniques that I really think are not that necessary. But if you're a beginner at this, then I strongly suggest you follow their instructions the first time. Here they have a page showing you the panels in the set, and you can do these in any order you wish. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you over to my cutting table and show you the setup for the hoop. And then I'm going to take you through the embroidery process and through from beginning to end to the finished panel. Then after that, I will carry on using the same method to make all the panels I want for this, and I'll come back with a section on how I put it all together and how I finish it.
So you can see here on my table, I have laid out 3 of the panels that I have already completed, and I'm now going to work on a 4th one. So this is what they'll look like, and eventually these will be put together, there'll be borders put on it, and we'll have a lovely table runner. And you can see the colors that I have picked to use in this as well. So first thing I'm going to do is, and I've already done this, is hoop my stabilizer. And here it is. This is no-show mesh, and I'm using 2 layers of no-show mesh. You might get away with 1 layer, but I find that 2 layers work the best. And so then I'm going to take it over to the machine, and we're going to stitch out, first of all, the placement line for our batting. What I use for batting is actually one by Hoop Sisters called Battleizer. It has a lower loft, and it allows things like table runners and placemats to lay flat, but you could use whatever batting you have. It'll still work fine for you. So I'm going to set this up over on the embroidery machine, and I'll be back.
And so that's it for today. Nothing else for you, but stay tuned this week for So Chatty to see Walter working with Lucy. And then, of course, we have Stephen and Walter live on Saturday. Now, next Monday Morning Coffee with Stephen will be live. So later this week, you will notice a splash screen go up on my channel for that, which will take you to the live when it happens. And it happens Monday, this coming Monday, July the 27th at 8 a.m. Eastern. If you can't make it for the live, it will be reposted afterwards as well, so you can still catch it. I'm hoping you come with questions and comments about things, and yeah, I will go with whatever you want to talk about in the chat section of that. I'll have some other things planned out as well, of course, as I always do. So it's a great opportunity. It'll probably be an hour and a half long, maybe 2 hours. I promise you it won't be longer than 2 hours. Don't let the time scare you. Plan for it. Get a big cup of coffee. Yeah. Or whatever you'd prefer to drink in the morning. Your choice. So that's next week. And I'll be reminding you of that in other videos this week as well. So I hope to see lots of you at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I know for some of you that's a little difficult to make because you're out west, for example. So, that's about 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning for you. Some of you across the ocean, though, it'll be more mid-afternoon for you or early afternoon for you. So anyways, I hope to see many of you and talk with you all then. Okay, have a great week. Go out there, make something wonderful, and we'll see you later. Bye for now. Hi, I'm just going to interrupt my program for just 1 second to remind you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for future notifications. That's all I ask of you. Show me a little love. Thanks.